Hey everyone, and welcome to the Synergy of Soul. I'm your guide, Dr. Morgan Oakes, and today I know that you've come here based on the spirituality track through Guidely, and I know that you're probably interested in learning more about the synergy of soul and what that's all about. And what I want you to do is I want you to hold this topic loosely, in that whatever area of your life either is kind of that pain point that you're wanting to move away from, or is that big goal that you're still really pushing towards this year, it's going to apply to that. This framework works with business, it works with relationship, it works with health. This is really that framework where whatever your marbles are, dump them into the funnel of this conversation. And in the shaking and the agitation of this funnel, whatever you need to is going to come through. So stick around, have some fun, and know that I'm going to have three big takeaways for you. I don't want this just to be something where you're motivated or you're inspired, and then at the end of it, you don't remember what I said and you're really not sure what to do with it. This is going to be something where I want you to have three really nice takeaways that you can immediately step into so that we get true transformation out of this. Meaning something in your life moves from where it was before this started to where it is at the end of this. So, grab a notebook, grab a pen, get comfortable, and hopefully you'll really, just let this be full out for you. Let it be bringing forward whatever it is that you're most needing at this time. So let's dive in. And so when we talk about the synergy of soul, for me, it's really that idea of where we're in flow, where we're in momentum. And we probably all know what it feels like when we know where we're going. It's like we're flowing downstream, and each paddle stroke just really moves us and accelerates us forward. And sometimes even when we're not paying attention or paddling, we're still going towards our destination. That's what I would call the synergy of success. And I'm going to help you with tools to, improve that, speed that up, or maybe get back on track if you feel like you're out of flow right now. Because we also, probably most of us, know what it feels like when we're out of flow. Maybe we don't know where our destination actually is. Maybe we're paddling, maybe we're working really, really hard, but it just doesn't feel like we're making any forward momentum, any progress. And so no matter where you're at on that path, I'm going to give you some tools to help support where you're at, get clarity, help you step into courage, and help you find inspired action that's sustainable and moving forward. Another thing that I think we really have kind of falling into the trap of lately is that idea of hustle, right? That we gotta work 7 days a week. We gotta give up our vacations. We gotta avoid our family, and we just gotta hustle, hustle, hustle to make it happen. And I've had it described to me more like catching a wave, like surfing. Yeah, maybe there's some paddling in the beginning, but you see your wave coming. You know which direction you're headed, and when you catch that wave and it moves you forward, then there's an acceleration that happens beyond what what we ever could have done on our own. So that's what we're going to look at catching today. So I can't wait to step through this together. And the reality is, I want for you what you want for yourself, right? It's really easy for me to put onto you my hopes and dreams, my aspirations. It's really easy to put on to you maybe my fears and my struggles in those pieces as well. But instead, what I really want for you is what you want for yourself. So again, hold that loosely as we're having this conversation, and hopefully in the process of this, you'll get the pieces forward that you're really needing for yourself. And I think it's nice sometimes to know where someone's coming from. So just a short bit about my background. I started as a mechanical engineer, so very science and data based. I moved into chiropractic, and again, I really treated that very science and data based as I was stepping into that new career. I added in physical therapy, I added in neurolinguistic programming. I was the guy that was always finding, oh, what's that next piece I need to get my patients exactly what they're needing? And during that process, then it transitioned into me becoming a high performance coach, doing motivational speaking. I did stand-up comedy for a little while. And at this point, I also do energy work and shamanic work. So ultimately, I'm just a guy that's really interested in my own personal transformation. And that's been the gift I've been able to share with people over the last 15 to 20 years, depending on which aspect we're looking at. So I'm going to share all the tools, all the different views on personal growth and transformation that I have for you, and we'll move from there. And the reality is, I wasn't always in this place. The story for me really got interesting. It really started, I was about a year into my first business. I was a chiropractor, I was living in Colorado, and it was probably about March. and I was laying on the phone, I was crying. This was after hours. I was in the middle of my office, just laying on the floor, and all the patients had left. There weren't that many patients. That was part of the issue to begin with. But all my patients had left. I was there by myself, and I was on the phone with my mom, just sobbing. And I was just telling her, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to make it over the hump. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to keep doing this. And I was tired. I was mentally tired, physically tired, emotionally tired, and I was running out. I was running out of motivation, energy, and I was also running out of finances. And so it was at that point where I really had to figure out what to do different because what I was doing wasn't working. And the fact for me had always been, as long as it was something I was interested in, that I was passionate about, as long as I tried hard, things just always seemed to work out. And this was the one time, the first time in my life, where me being passionate about something and me working as hard as I could wasn't paying off. And when I looked at things, it wasn't the town that I was in because there were lots of successful chiropractors where I was. It wasn't the profession because everybody else was doing well. It wasn't me caring about what I was doing. It wasn't passion. It wasn't about knowledge around being a doctor or being a healer. It was something different. And this is where I discovered kind of that glass ceiling or that plateau in my own life. And this is the point when I started diving into personal growth work. And I did big personal growth work that was applied to my whole being. I did very, very focused personal growth work that was based on business. And especially in that first year, I focused in on business. And in the first year, I spent quite a bit of money on business personal growth, but it paid back about sixfold, right? And so it was just a great investment. There was a lot of transformation and growth that happened. And it kind of made me realize, wow, like I'm the common denominator. In any area that I want to grow or evolve, I'm the central aspect to that. And so, in the years following that, I did just a ton of personal growth around business, around personal counseling, about relationship, around health, around spirituality. I had mentors, teachers, coaches, all of the above. And in that process, what I found was that every single person that I worked with, they were super focused in their one niche or area, right? And when they would give me the homework or the things I was supposed to do, it was almost like a part-time job. But nobody really cared about me holistically. My business coach wasn't worried about whether or not my relationship made it. They weren't worried about my physical health. My trainer never asked how my business was going, never really was giving me tools around being happier or healthy, let's say mentally, emotionally. It was really focused on physical. My spiritual teacher didn't care about any of the rest of it either, not really based on where I was getting my guidance. And so through all that growth, what I didn't get was that holistic approach. I didn't find balance. I didn't find that bigger picture. And what I've found over the last 15 years of doing all this work on myself and with all these other teachers and guides was really my own pathway, which is a blend of everything that I've done up until now. And so I've broken it down to 3 steps just to keep it easy. The first step being clarity, right? If we can get clear about where we're headed, what we're wanting to do, what we're hoping to achieve, maybe what pain we're looking to step away from, when we have that piece of clarity, a lot of times that creates that first step forward. The next part is being courageous enough to step into it. So we've got clarity first, then there's courage. A lot of times, if you think about some of the best stories you've heard from somebody, it's leaving a relationship, it's leaving a business, it's leaving a career, it's leaving a location, and it's stepping into that thing that was maybe just out of reach, just out of what the realm of possibility had painted itself as over the previous years before that. So we've got clarity, we've got courage, and then after that, we've got inspired action. And inspired action to me is something that, it's bigger than just a to-do list. It's inspirational. It's something that we're really passionate about. And the other part of that we're going to share later as we're talking about this is how do we make it sustainable, right? Because hustling for a week or two and then burning out doesn't work. Hustling for 6 months and you lose all your friendships, all the beautiful connections that you made, you lose your health, maybe you lose your relationship, also not sustainable, right? So inspired action is about what can we do now moving forward indefinitely so it can really be our life. I think it's the difference between eating well and doing like a crash diet for a little bit that we just rebound off of. So another way to look at this even more simply is how do we get really good at listening? It's that clarity piece. And then how do we get really good at stepping? And then we come back to listening and back to stepping. So that's the process I'm going to step you through. And today we're going to start with clarity. So anytime I'm working, with a one-on-one coaching client, anytime I'm speaking from a stage, I always like to start with the premise of, what if you already knew all the answers? So really sit with that. What if you already knew all the answers? I love that saying that you couldn't have formulated the question if you didn't already have the answers. And so if we start there, a lot of times it's like the diamonds are already within you. We just need to figure out how to uncover them and let them shine, right? And so if you already knew all the answers, the processes I'm going to share with you are just about that uncovering. I think it's also nice to reframe clarity. I think for clarity, a lot of people think that it's like, oh, I'm in Seattle and I need to drive to New York and I know every single stop sign, stoplight, gas station, restaurant, hotel, motel along the way. Like I know every step of the way to get that entire distance. And a lot of times clarity, it isn't a destination. It's not static. Clarity is more like a verb. It's an action. It's that next thing that you do. And I live in Seattle currently, and I know that to get to New York from Seattle, the first thing I have to do is drive east on I-90. I don't know anything else, but I know that'll probably actually get me most of the way there. And I'll figure out the rest on the way. So clarity is not a static destination. It's a verb, it's an action, and it requires that first step. The second thing is we all experience deep levels of clarity. We've all had those epiphanies. We've all had those moments where, almost, out of a state of not knowing anything, you can know exactly what it is that comes next. We hear about that in relationships. We hear about that in careers, in moves, and even in, this is what I know that I need to do today. So the other thing is it's really built into our language, right? I had a gut instinct. I just knew in my heart. We have sayings like, oh, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Or, yeah, like the hair was standing up on the back of my neck and I just knew it was the right thing to do. Right? So it's built into our language because it's part of what's always been with humanity. It's that natural level of knowing that's allowed us to survive and grow and thrive as we are. So, and I think it's really easy if we call clarity intuition to write it off. It can be a little bit woo at times. And the reality is I love quoting people bigger than myself that lean into these words and these ways of moving through the world as well. And so if we look at Steve Jobs, we know that he has just created massive change on the planet. And I love this saying from Mr. Jobs: have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Right? So there's a deep level of knowing there. And I could have quoted Oprah, I could have quoted any number of people. Intuition and clarity is just something that's built into us. And I think some of the greats, whether it's a great mom in my neighborhood, all the moms in my neighborhood had eyes in the back of their head. If you talk to good business people, there's a lot of gut instinct that's involved in addition to, a clear mind around things. And so when we look at clarity, how can we strengthen it? So let's start with the first premise. Anybody that's watching this, you all have deep levels of clarity built into you. You have the ability to tap into intuition. You're readily able to recognize synchronicity when it shows up. So to strengthen clarity, a lot of times is just getting a lot of the messiness out of the way. So the first tool for strengthening clarity that I want to share is just simply a morning practice. It's how do we treat that first hour in the morning after we wake up? And as a certified high performance coach, one of the things I know is if you grab that cell phone, if you dive into text messages, emails, social media in that first hour, your productivity for the rest of the day goes down by double digits. Right? So that's on a productivity level, and we'll talk more about that in the future. But the piece is you also lose that opportunity where you're coming out of that sleep state, you're moving through the theta state, and you have an access point to something deeper and bigger than yourself. And so for a morning practice, one of the first things you can do is just look at the dreams that you had the evening before. We know based on just great history through people that dreams have brought a lot of amazing things to the planet. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity came from a dream. The chemical structure, the organic chemical structure for benzene, the carbon ring, came to that scientist in a dream. And even something like the sewing machine showed up in a dream to the person that created that. So dreams are a great place initially to tap into what's there. Another thing that a lot of the world's top performers will do is dive into something like journaling or maybe reading a favorite sacred text. Sacred might mean something like the Bible, it might mean morning affirmation books, it might mean just that current book that you're taking in, but allowing just some white space to take in something positive there. And before I do that, I usually like to do some type of journaling. It really allows whatever is in me to flow out before kind of the wildness and we step into the stream of life that's always flowing out there. So morning practices are a great way to start. The second one is around intuitions and synchronicities. And so for some of you that those words might be new, an intuition is that thing that just kind of jumps in and you know it without knowing it. You know it without knowing it. It's a bright sunny day and you're like, you know what, I should grab the umbrella. I'm not sure why, but I should grab the umbrella. And later that afternoon it rains and you're like, I didn't know this was coming, but something in me did. It's grabbing that extra thing from the grocery store. Intuition a lot of times will keep people out of auto accidents. It'll have you reach out to that person that you haven't talked to in a long time. Just at that moment, they're needing that contact. And then synchronicity, some people describe as the power of three. It's the way I like to look at it. Hey, have you read book A? And you don't think much about it. And then the second person will be like, oh my gosh, I just finished this book A. I think you'll love it. And then the third person will come in and they might ask you, hey, I've got this book that I'm thinking you might be interested in. Have you heard of it? And you can even say, yeah, is it called book A? And they'll be like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? That's how synchronicities really started showing up for me in the beginning, was the things that were showing up in threes. After the second one, I would really have an awareness of it so that I could take action on it right away. So intuitions and synchronicities are a way that I think clarity shows up really, really well for us. And then the third part that's really important to strengthening your clarity is actually taking action. Now imagine someone in your life is giving you advice and they keep giving you advice and you keep ignoring it. At a certain point, that person may just stop giving you advice because you're not taking it anyway, right? But if you take the advice and it works, you're more open to it and they're more likely to share it. And I think it's true with our clarity as well. So when something comes in, a lot of times it's just a small step. It may not be something huge like sign up and go back to school next week, but it might be like, hey, I think I'd be interested in going back to school, and you can get on the website and start researching it. You can start having those conversations. You can start bringing that flow into your life. So taking action is a great way to continue strengthening your clarity. Now, what's true about clarity? I believe that clarity is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets, right? So keep using that clarity, keep strengthening it, and know that the flow will continue to happen more and more. So even though the framework is clarity, courage, inspired action, the next piece I want to share with you is the inspired action. We'll come back to clarity. There's a great saying from Unknown. I think Unknown has some of the best quotes out there. So from Unknown, imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. Just start. So going back to that definition of clarity being not a static destination, but actually a verb, there's a lot of, let's say, messiness that's involved in utilizing clarity. We may not have the perfect outcome, but a lot of times we know the next step. And I also love that saying, ready, fire, aim. If you're always waiting for perfection, you may not get there. And so when you have those small pieces of clarity, start taking just those small risks. Start taking those small steps and knowing that in the beginning of anything that we do, we're not going to have excellence. We're not going to have those 10 hours. So really just get into action. And when we look at inspired action, as I said, part of it's about having it be sustainable. One of the things that I see with a lot of my coaching clients and a lot of the people I work with is we're taught how to work hard, but we're not taught how to sustain it. We're not taught how to keep our energy up. So one of the first things I want to teach you is something I share with my high performance coaching clients, and it's just a type of breathing that'll help energize you. So if you imagine, no matter what you're doing, if it's parenting, if it's being in a relationship, if it's something around the house, if it's around the office, if it's, on the phone with clients all day, or at this point on Zoom with clients all day, you can get worn down. And the chances are your 8th hour of doing that may not be as strong as your first hour of doing that. So one of the big things you can do is set a timer for every 50 minutes. Every 50 minutes you stop, you take a small break, and you re-energize yourself so that you can maintain that high level of performance and interaction and presence throughout the day. So very, very simple for the high performance breathing. If you're able to do this, if you're at a place where you can stand up, where it's safe, please go ahead and follow with me. And if not, you can come back to this video or just remember what it was and step into it. So I'm just kind of bouncing up and down on my toes a little bit. I'm not jumping, I'm not leaving the ground. It's just kind of like heels up and down, just creating a little momentum with the body. And then I'm breathing into my stomach. So not into my lungs, not into my shoulders, but into my belly. And we're just gonna go in through the nose, out through the nose, faster than we would normally breathe. And let's do 10 of those. Now, if you start to get lightheaded, if you're gonna fall down, you can brace yourself on something nearby. I want you to do this safely. But let's go ahead and do it. And it'll be loud enough, if you had somebody standing next to you, they would hear your breath. So let's go. All right. The other thing to do with that is if you can try to smile with your eyes and your mouth and keep moving through it that way, it just changes your outlook. It changes your energy. So what I'm feeling now, hair on the back of my head standing up, kind of tingling, vibrating. I can feel it on the back of my arms and on my back. And what you're wanting to do is just re-energize yourself so you can show up the best way that you can. This is something that at the end of a long work day, if I'm getting ready to meet with a friend or a loved one and I'm just a bit worn down, I can do 10 or 20 of these and really show up with that level of energy that I'm wanting to meet them with. And another thing we can talk about during this is just physiology in general. We always hear about like, oh, I had a ton of breads and carbs for lunch and then it was a mess in the afternoon. And then I had to do some sugar and caffeine, which got me up again, but then I was a mess like 45 minutes after that. And we just go through these like ebbs and flows of, kind of that frantic energy high and then that crash. So things like breath, things like drinking lots of water, things like eating those foods that work best for your body and in the situation are some great ways to keep your energy up that's sustainable in a good way, right? The next thing is around productivity. Now I've already shared stopping every 50 minutes and taking that break. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be just a few minutes. You can do things like push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks. You can get up and just walk to the restroom. You can finish a glass of water and fill that back up. But just getting enough momentum or just a break in the motion that you're doing, giving your mind a little bit of a break, giving your eyes a little bit of a break. A lot of people don't know it. If your eyes get tired, they force the rest of your body to be tired as well. It's a protection mechanism. So if you can get away from the screen, get up, move about, that's going to be a great thing. I also already shared the idea of winning the morning, right? One of the things I'm getting ready to produce is the Intuitive Success morning routine, because all the people that we know of, whether they're in that spiritual field, business field, there's a certain level of success that happens when you win your morning and create things in that way. So again, as I shared, if you're doing those other things in the first hour, your productivity is going to go down by double digits. And ultimately, it's not about working hard, it's about working smart and keeping your productivity levels up. We're going to make this sustainable for you moving forward. The other thing that I want to share is really around momentum. And when we talk about the synergy of success, synergy, momentum, there's just that flow that happens. And we know that the first time we move something or do something or step into something can take a lot of effort. But the better we get at it, the more often we do it, the lower the kind of the threshold or the barrier is to move into it, right? There's less energy required to do something on our 50th time doing it than there was on the first time or even the 10th time of doing it. So whatever it is that you're wanting to do, look at having consistency around that, knowing that objects that are in motion tend to stay in motion. Now, what's true about inspired action? Much like clarity, I believe inspired action is a muscle, and the more we use it, the more it gets strengthened. Okay, so again, we've got clarity and we've got inspired action, and in between those two, we have courage. I really feel like courage is the bridge between clarity and inspired action, because I feel like at this time we have two real groups of people. We've got that group of people that they have a ton of clarity, a ton of ideas, a ton of thoughts, they meditate, they talk to psychics, they're getting all this great information, but maybe they don't ground it out, maybe they don't do anything with it, and so then it just stays amazing inside their head, inside their heart, inside their body, and it doesn't really get brought out into the world, And I think that's not all that fulfilling for them, and it certainly doesn't help heal the world, which is really what's needed at this time. That's one half of society at this point, if we're to try to break things into small groups. The other half of society, I feel like, especially in the US, we're just that Nike just do it society. We just hustle. We're listening to Gary Vee. It's all about how do we maximize and produce and all of these things, but it may not be sustainable. And it may not come from a place of, let's say, divinity or something higher than ourselves. Maybe it's not a passion. Maybe it's not something that resonates with us. It's something that might be on our should list. Or, this is what has been in my family for generations. Or, this is what I've always done. Or this is who I am. Right? And so if we can blend that high level of intuition and spirituality and centeredness and really blend it with the half of society that's really good at producing and doing and creating things and getting them out into the world, I think that's the sweet spot. And I think that sweet spot is accessed through courageous actions. So when we look at this further, Tony Robbins has a great saying that's change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. I'm going to say that again because I think a lot of us might call this settling. A lot of us might call this balance. A lot of us might label this as it just is what it is. I remember when I first started with my engineering firm long time ago. It was probably 20 years ago, if not more. It was more than 20 years ago. And I started working for this company, and there were people that were so burnt out, and they were just so, let's say, disenchanted with the work that they were doing. And in my mind, even at that age, I'm like, dude, you're 30. You have more years left to work than you've even been alive. And they were at this point where they were just flatlining and they were just putting in their time, and there wasn't anything that they were really looking forward to. There was no real hope in what they were, stepping towards. And so again, let's look back at this saying and let's see if maybe there's a place where it applies in our life, because I think it's one of the great motivators. Change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. And especially right now, at this time on our planet, I believe COVID has really, created this crucible of transformation. The things that didn't work in 2019, they're flared up this year. I mean, we're seeing tons of transition in relationship and career. I think some people's health is moving in a negative direction, and other people, whether they bought a Peloton and they're doing challenges. I've met couples that, they're both doing the 31-day Peloton challenge. I know I'm meeting on Zoom with people and doing exercise routines to really lift things up and level up. This is a real time to be innovative and work on those areas to get us going in the right direction. And the things that weren't working, if we're addressing them, I think it's a time where we're really supported in change and transition. If we're trying to still kind of push that beach ball under the water of the pool, we're trying to sweep those things under the carpet. If we're just trying to ignore that thing that's been biting at our heels for a little while, this is a time where it's just going to get more and more difficult to do that. So I think kind of easing into acknowledging what's there and getting the support to move forward, I think we're really supported in that at this time. So let's keep talking about cultivating courage, because I think this is a really big one. And when we look at courage, one of the first places that I think really needs to be addressed is the reality of what's going on, right? There might be those truths. Sometimes there's truths I don't even want to, acknowledge to myself. It's that thing that I push under the carpet. It's that thing that I push to the side. But for true courage to happen, I think there needs to be vulnerability. First, vulnerability with ourselves, to admit that maybe either we have this really big goal, aspiration, dream, or maybe admitting that there's kind of this pain, there's this flat spot in our life, there's this plateau, there's this place that just hasn't really been working and we haven't really acknowledged it. So first, being vulnerable with ourselves, and then being vulnerable with those around us. I think especially in this time of social media, we really portray to the outer world that everything's good, right? We show the vacations, we show the beautiful meals, we show the celebrations, and we show all the positive. And vulnerability is really that muscle that's necessary to be able to acknowledge what is and to step forward. And if you haven't, looked into any of Brene Brown's work, she does a really good job of really addressing vulnerability and shame. And when you shine a light on those things, they really soften and things will start to flow. The other thing that I think is really important for cultivating courage is finding someone outside of ourselves to help move us forward. Because the reality is, we're exactly our best creation of everything from our past into our current day, right? And so sometimes we need to, get something just outside of ourselves to help forward momentum. And so one of the first levels I like to look at for this is modeling. And so when we look at modeling, it's that idea of maybe there's someone down the street and wow, it seems like they're fit. They're always hanging out with their family. Seems like they've got a really great family life. And it seems like they're doing well financially and they're happy in their career or business, right? And so you can start noticing what things they're doing and start modeling your life after them a little bit, right? And that tends to be just kind of looking from afar. You might notice them at your workplace. You might notice what they're doing, pre-COVID at the gym. You kind of notice outside you and you start modeling your life after them, right? And I think social media and YouTube videos and a lot of those things really help us do that as well. The next level up from modeling would be mentoring. So maybe you pull that person aside at the neighborhood and you ask if you can start learning more about what they're doing that seems to be working for them. Or maybe there's that person that's a little bit higher up at work or a little bit further ahead in the career of choice that you're in, and you can chat with them and ask them questions. And in my experience, most people are really open to taking on a mentor. The reality is most people that are ahead of us had somebody support them, and it's almost that piece of paying it forward, on the back end to just support the next person that's coming up behind you, So that would be reaching out, looking for mentorship, asking for support. That can be sometimes really structured and formal, and other times it's very informal, but it's having those conversations to move us forward. And then for me, a step up from that's getting more direct support. Sometimes that's through a book, a YouTube video, maybe it's an online series, maybe it's something like this where you're tuning into a summit to get wisdom directly from the people that are sharing, from different aspects in their career or their life, or it may be more like one-on-one coaching. For me, that's been a place I've leaned heavily because a lot of the group coaching has worked to get me to a certain level, and they haven't always known my exact circumstances. So those are kind of some other levels that you can step into if you're like, hey, I feel like I'm stuck. I feel like this aspect is not moving, or maybe it's not moving as fast as you would like it to. And you can help reach outside of you. And the way that this ties into courage is a lot of times they're able to help us see where we're blocked. They're able to help us get past it. And for me, I know there's even something to making a commitment to somebody, whether it's an accountability partner or a coach or somebody outside of myself, that then helps me move past some of those things that I might be blocked on and not be as courageous as I would like to be normally. The last piece is looking at something that I call the courage scale. Now, the courage scale can be used a couple different ways. One way is if you think about a scale that's out of balance, and when it tips back into balance, you're leaning into courageous action. One of the things you can do to help tip that scale is just surrounding yourself with people that are courageous. They say that we're really the average of those 5 people we spend the most time with. And so who are your 5 people? And maybe it's different sets of 5 people for different areas of your life. Maybe these people at work are really doing amazing, amazing jobs, and you can surround yourself with them, and it's going to help momentum in that area of work or career. Maybe these people in the area of spirituality are just doing a great job, and you really look up to them, and you would like to be, approximating a life that they're living. Maybe it's in relationship, maybe it's family members that really tend to lift everybody up and help support positive living and positive growth. So the first way to tip that scale is surrounding yourself with people that are living good lives, that they're taking courageous actions, that they're moving in the direction of their dreams. I think that creates momentum for everybody. Another thing about the courage scale is a lot of times, and I used the example earlier of going back to school. Going back to school might be a huge thing. I've got to let go of my job or my current career. I need to make financial changes. I might need to move locations. I may not even know what's necessary to take this next step. So the courage scale gets tipped little by little, right? That first step might just be looking into school. It might be looking into what financial aid programs are out there. It might be looking and finding which schools are closest to you or that think that they might work the best for you, right? This might be a really great time to take courses online and have that flexibility. But the courage scale a lot of times gets tipped in those little steps. It's not usually that idea of like jumping off the cliff and hoping that the wings will form on the way down. Sometimes it's that, but a lot of times courage happens in little tiny steps. And then that scale gets tipped and all of a sudden you're doing things and being in a way that you never thought you could have achieved before. So don't have it be bigger than it needs to be. What's true about courage? Again, I think it's a muscle. The more we use it, the stronger it gets. Little courageous actions create the strength necessary for bigger courageous actions. Now, another thing I think is really interesting is the idea of heart. At one point in a personal growth, it was a 9-month class around spirituality, I drew this heart with, arms and muscles, and it was flexing, and its head was almost like a starburst shape. And to me, that was that idea of intuition coming down and me being courageous enough and strong enough to step into it. Now, when I looked into the root of the word courage, it actually means heart. So when it comes down to these things, when it's about being courageous, like, what's it going to take for you to be courageous enough to live into your best life? What's it going to take for you to step in the directions of your dreams? What's it going to take to maybe let go of those aspects of, career, relationship, health, belief systems that are just no longer serving you? And when you look at those people around you, maybe your movements, your evolution, your progress, maybe it's necessary to support, maybe it's your brothers and sisters, maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's people in your community, maybe it's people at your business, maybe it's just you. But who is it that's really relying on you to be courageous enough and to take the actions necessary to evolve into that next thing? And I think, a good enough answer, a great answer is, it's about me being happy. It's about me being healthy. It's about me being passionate and not just being in a plateau of life. So what are you willing to do to move into that? Now, when we look again at the synergy of success, I believe that it's a flow. It's like a dance move. Right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. Clarity, inspired action. Clarity and inspired action. And I think for a lot of people that end up in action and they're like, no, this is inspired, I'm passionate about it, this is what I love. If you stay too far in that inspired action and you're not courageous enough to keep asking good questions, looking for that next level of clarity, there's something that gets lost there as well. So whether it's in chiropractic, whether it's in looking at neuroplasticity and how the mind is working, whether it's looking at emotional intelligence or how you show up in society, there's this evolution that's always happening. I think we're always in growth or we're always in decline. I think the idea of static is not really true in living systems like humans and humanity, society. And so if you're in inspired action, keep asking good questions. And if you've been asking good questions but haven't been stepping into motion, just start trying to find your rhythm with that. I believe that's where the synergy of success steps in. I believe that's where a lot of pain and a lot of things that aren't serving us just simply kind of fall away, evolve away. And that's where we step into our best life moving forward. It gives us goals and aspirations, and it really helps us believe that there's those things that we can live into because we're in momentum. All right? So the other thing with this is looking at what happens tomorrow, right? There's so many great things happening through Guidely. There's so many great speakers. I've looked through the list of everybody out there. There's so many amazing topics. There's so many amazing takeaways. What happens tomorrow? I think the reality is when we look back at these things, what's that piece of clarity? What's that piece of clarity that maybe you've had for a long time and you've just never taken that step, you've never implemented, you've never moved in that direction? When you look at clarity, when you look at courage, what's that thing that you've always kind of been shying away from a little bit? If somebody were to ask you in this moment, what's that next best courageous thing that you can do that might change your life forever? Usually we know what that answer is. Or what's the place where we haven't been courageous and moving forward in that area of our life that we're focused on right now? So usually we have a piece of clarity that we haven't acted on. We know where we're either ready to be courageous or we've been avoiding being courageous. And what's that piece of inspired action that when I was sharing, you're like, oh, wow, it's really time for me to step into that? Maybe it's a new way of maintaining your physiology so you have enough energy to be the best version of yourself, whether it's in business, relationship, or just in one-on-one time with yourself. Even when we look at spirituality, I think it requires a lot of energy and physiology and health to meditate, to journal, to stay connected in whatever way we're wanting to stay connected to our spiritual practices. So in each of those three categories, I hope that you have a great takeaway that you can really step into after you get done watching this. And I also know that some of you are going to want more than that to move forward. So the reality is a lot of great information, and I know there's a lot of great giveaways. There's a lot of things going on out there that's already built into this Guidely program. So if you haven't gone to my page, know that I've got a free opt-in there. It's just a name and an email. You're going to get a video training called The 6 Keys to Living Your Top Life. I have been giving that to people for the last few years, and even some of my best paying coaching clients have leaned into that heavily and have continued to do so through the course of our time together because they just got so much positive information out of that. The other thing that's part of my free opt-in is just an opportunity to come chat with me for 30 minutes. We'll do a phone call, kind of find out where you're blocked, see if maybe I can help some momentum start to occur in your life. And a lot of times it's just sharing something with somebody where they can give you that next best step. They can give another view on something that maybe you've been stuck in for a while. So I'd love to get both of those things to you just for a name and an email, but maybe you want more than that. And one of the things I wanted to do to help support the launch of this amazing program, Guidely, is there's a couple things that I've done for a lot of different people that I wanted to offer it at half off or even more. And so one of them is a Synergy of Success coaching session. We'll spend an hour together. I'll have you do an intake before that so I really know more about you. And when we dive into that hour, we can just go deep, we can get a lot done and really get you moving into this next phase of life, whatever that means for you. The other option there is doing a Synergy energy session. So in my training as a shamanic practitioner, a Reiki master, a lot of energy work, neurolinguistic programming, just a lot of things to help move the soul and move the unconscious mind forward. I'm offering an hour-long session of that at 50% off as well. And so if any of those interest you, definitely go sign up, name an email, and get those free offers. Those are super simple. And if you're wanting more than that, know that I've got those deeply discounted offers out there as well. I hope this really helped. If there's anything you need, please reach out. I know my contact info is on the page as well. And really know that, is it a difficult time on the planet? Absolutely. We can also use other words besides difficult. Is this a historical time on the planet? Is this a curious and interesting time on the planet? All of those things, yes. I really feel like we're being supported at the highest level to create shift and transition with a lot of ease and grace if we allow it. What's that thing in your life that is the pain you're wanting to get away from? What's that thing in your life that's the passion you've been maybe waiting for years to step into? Now's your time. You're being fully supported energetically. The planet is ready for shift and evolution. So if there's something I can do to support you, please reach out. Know that you are truly my dream. Doing this work is what I feel like I'm here to do. I love being able to share, so thank you for being here, for listening, and know that I'm here to support you in any way that I can. Be well, and make the rest of 2020 the best that it can be for you and your family, your loved ones, your life.